Here's a super unique and easy way to flip a boring piece of furniture into something extra special. I'm removing the drawer and the knob, then giving the entire side table a light sanding with an orbital sander to remove the previous yellowed varnish. Next, I'm opening up a silicone mold that showcases different medallion shapes. I'm brushing on some cornstarch inside the molds, then filling each mold with air dry clay. The cornstarch keeps the clay from sticking to the molds. Since I have the option, I'm filling all the medallion shapes with clay so I have a selection to choose from. To remove the clay, I'm tipping the mold upside down, then gently prying the clay out without pulling on it, then placing each medallion somewhere flat to dry. Before the clay is completely dry, I'm puncturing holes into the centers of the medallions using a small screw. After the clay is dry in about 2 to 3 days, I'm placing my chosen medallion on top of a small plastic cap for easier painting. Choosing a small black knob from my stash, I'm painting the medallion and knob so they match each other in a deep gray, then highlighting it with an off-white to give it an oxidized look. For the last step, I'm brushing on a very light touch of rub and buff in antique gold so the pieces have a tarnished metal look. I'm applying the rub and buff with a brush, lightly sweeping over the pieces and along the medallion edges. To install the new knobs, I'm inserting a screw from the inside of the drawer, then positioning the medallion in place first, then screwing on the knob semi-tight last. And the end result is a custom-made antique drawer pull that looks like it was found in a box of old hardware. The knob works great. It's as strong as ever, and both pieces truly resemble old metal that really gives the side table an upscale look. I love the new look of this piece. It's super pretty to use as a side table or even as a plant stand. I hope this inspires you to try making your own enhanced high-end knobs for an extra special furniture revamp of your own.
This ottoman was headed out to the curb. I decided to rescue it and give it a little makeover. This is made of microfiber, and you can paint microfiber. I picked up some white chalk paint, and I'm mixing it with a little bit of water, so it's really thin. Now I'm just using a big paintbrush to paint the fabric. Now that the paint is completely dry, I picked up 2 kinds of fabric. I have kind of a citrusy, colorful pattern on each one, and I'm going to cut 2-inch wide strips. To attach this fabric to the ottoman, I'm using a special Mod Podge made for fabric. To use this, I'm going to add a thin coat to the back of the strip of fabric and then press it onto the ottoman. I'm going to repeat this for each strip of fabric that I cut. And then I need to walk away for a couple hours and let that dry. Once dry, it's time to seal that fabric in. So I'm just going to use another coat of Mod Podge over the top of the fabric. Now I can use this in my living room. I've covered up the stained fabric, and I can use it as a footstool, an extra seat, or a decorative spot. I hope this inspired you to save a footstool or a fabric piece from your curb and dress it up with paint and Mod Podge.
I had this cute little console table, but I wanted to update it a bit. I wanted to add an arch to it. I had some old MDF board in the garage. I measured out a piece of MDF board that would cover the front of my console. Once I had the rectangular part figured out, I came down from the corners and decided how I wanted my arch to look. Once this was done, I cut it out using a little handsaw. Once that piece was done, I used it as a template to cut my second piece, the one that would go on the back of my console. This made it quicker so I didn't have to draw things over again. I cut that out as well, and now I had the front and back. For the side pieces, I just cut straight rectangles since I wanted that part to stay closed. So I started to attach it using liquid nails. Once I applied the liquid nails and attached the MDF board, I used clamps to hold it in place for several hours. Once that was dry and secure, the next step was to add joint compound. I had a few different size scrapers so that I could easily apply the joint compound around the console table. It goes on kind of like a thick icing. I used it to cover up the visible seams, and I did have to go back over these areas a second time to cover up the seam a bit more. I added the compound all along the front, the sides, and even on the inside since it would be visible at the end. Once it was completely dry overnight, I wiped it down just using a wet rag. Using the damp rag allowed me to kind of take off any imperfections or bumps without getting a lot of sand and dust everywhere. Now my arches look a little more matched and intentional. I hope this inspired you to create your own textured console table and have fun with the design.
A utility cart from IKEA is a great value and a great piece for storage. How about we give this classic gem a fabulous makeover? Pick your favorite peel and stick wallpaper pattern and let's get to measuring. Measure and cut a piece of wallpaper that is the same size as the mesh insert. Peel back the corner of your measured wallpaper and the rest of the backing will peel off easily. Apply to the center of the 2 cart shelves, leaving a white border around the paper. This will mimic the border of the mesh shelf. Use a debit card or gift card to smooth out wrinkles by pressing against the paper and pushing wrinkles away. Now take the side panels, measure and cut wallpaper to fit around the panels and apply. Miter the corners just like you would for a gift package or a sewing project. Follow this process for wallpapering each side piece of the cart shelves, as well as the connector pieces. Looking at your wallpaper color and pattern, pull an accent color from the pattern and spray paint the 2 side rail handles in that color. Follow the instructions that IKEA provides in the box and assemble all of the pieces of the cart. Poke a pen or screwdriver through the wallpaper and through the holes so that you can attach the pieces together with the screws. Pop on the wheels and you are ready to roll. Style this IKEA cart as a bar cart or a beverage cart with wine glasses and bottles. Or use it as a side table, complete with a lamp, books, and plants. I hope this inspired you to give the classic IKEA utility cart a stylish makeover using peel and stick wallpaper.
I picked up a set of chairs off Facebook Marketplace. To begin, I'm going to take some painter's tape and I'm going to go around the outside of the fabric. So I just have a spray bottle here with some water in it, and I'm going to begin to work in small sections, just spraying off some of the chair with the water. You just want it damp enough that the paint will soak in. For the upper portion of my chair, I just continue in the same process that I have been doing. When I am done painting, I'm going to remove the painter's tape, and I do this when the paint is still a little bit tacky. You don't want to wait till it's completely dry because you may peel off the paint.
I wrapped an iron in tinfoil for this brilliant furniture hat. I grabbed a side table from the thrift store and took it apart. I sanded it, wiped it clean, primed and painted. I painted 2 coats and then sanded and wiped clean between each coat. I added a clear top finish and then I put it all back together. I wrapped my iron in tinfoil to keep it clean and then I turned it on. Once it was heated, I ironed wood edge banding to the edges. I left a bit overhanging on either side and then I trimmed it with scissors. When all the edges were complete, I gently sanded the top edge and filed the corners to ensure a smooth finish.
I think you'll be amazed at what you can create using discarded furniture. I took some bamboo sticks, which I had purchased from Amazon, and I measured the length of the front of the drawer. I cut the bamboo sticks to this length, decided that I was going to remove and discard the top drawer. I removed the old doorknobs from the remaining drawers, and then I sanded them down lightly. I spaced out my bamboo sticks, and then I applied them, simply using liquid nails. I took the drawers and the cabinets outside, and I spray painted them. While I was outside, I also cut a thin piece of plywood so that it would replace where that top drawer was that I had removed. I simply slid this into place and continued painting the entire nightstand. I added new pulls, which I had purchased online as well.
I gave these golden oak chairs from the early 80s a complete makeover. I sanded all the wood clean before applying the barkeeper's friend. After a bit of trial and error, I figured out that the easiest way to cover all the wood was to mix the barkeeper's friend into a paste and paint it on. After letting them dry for several hours, I scraped off the dried paste before wiping the wood clean with a wet cloth. I used a clear water-based sealer to protect the wood. Replacing the cane was a little tricky. The seats also got a new look with new foam and new fabric.
Can't beat the price of free, so let's give this stool new life. I'm going to begin by sanding off just the top part of the stool. I want to leave this down to the bare wood, and I painted the legs and the spindles on the stool, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it just a little bit of shine with this gold wax from Country Chic Paint. Then I took this Magnolia Garden Transfer from Dixie Belle Paint, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply this to the top part of my stool. I'm going to come in with this tough coat from Country Chic Paint just to seal it onto my design.
Grab a can of black spray paint and a roll of rattan webbing. Grab one of those outdoor folding metal tables. Clean it up with cut some paper and tape to the table so only the frame shows. Give the frame a fresh coat of black spray paint and let it dry completely. Outline the top of the table onto the rattan webbing with a Sharpie. Cut out the circle with some sharp scissors. Spray one side of the rattan with some spray adhesive. Spray the top of the table and let it sit for a few seconds until the surface is tacky. Place and press the sticky side of the rattan circle onto the top of the table. Place some heavy books on top of the rattan. Use some sharp scissors to trim the excess rattan from the circle.